Vermilion Local Schools bond presentation here. I know it's not always easy to get out, especially when the sun's out, it's nicer, so I thank you all for showing up tonight. This presentation was written, so I'm going to read through it quite a bit, but it was written so it can play at board meetings. This presentation is given at every board meeting. It plays for all the parents that are here, and then I do speak about it afterwards. So first and foremost, just why are we asking for a bond? Vermilion school buildings are aging and in urgent need of repair and modernization. We have issues like leaking roofs. We have inefficient heating and cooling systems and outdated classrooms that no longer meet modern educational standards. So I went through and pulled up some history and tried to find what exactly is the age of all of our buildings. So our high school is 57 years old. Our middle school is 49 years old. Had a little tough time trying to find exactly when the bus garage was made, but from what I could tell, it's right around 77 years old. And then believe it or not, like our elementary school, it seems like it was just built, it's already 10 years old. So again, why are we asking for a bond? Vermilion's always used its general fund to pay for capital repairs and upgrades. The cost of these projects, though, are just becoming too great to continue to follow the current model of funding that we have. And so I went through and I pulled up, it's all on the Department of Taxation's website. You can pull up and see what schools have what types of bonds and what types of levies. And so by comparison, out of the 611 school districts in Ohio, 211 of them have an income tax, 410 of them have passed a bond levy, and 507 of them have a permanent improvement levy. So a permanent improvement levy is it's a levy. It generates money, and it's specifically for the general upkeep of the buildings. It's money that's earmarked only for that. And so 507 schools have money dedicated aside through the passage of a permanent improvement levy to keep up with the school building's aging infrastructure. We don't have any of those, and so we always use our general fund to cover those costs. And so what I did is I also pulled up some more history here, looking at our levies. So Vermilion has 4 current expense levies. They were passed in 1976, another one in 89, and then 2 in 92 and 93. That was the last operating current expense levies. The next operating levy we passed was an emergency levy, and that was last passed in 2008. That's the one that comes up for renewal every 5 years. So I've heard this before and out in the community. What about all the money schools received from COVID? What exactly did we do with all that? So I pulled up what we received. The first round was our ESSER 1 funding. We received $259,000. The next round was ESSER 2. It was just over $1 million. And then the third and final round, the ARP ESSER funds, that was $2.4 million. So how did we spend those ESSER dollars? So we used our ESSER 1 and our ESSER 2 funds to pay for 1,350 Apple computers and 250 iPads. That was done in 2021, and we bought that for all students and staff. The cost for one-to-one technology was $1.3 million, which was just slightly more than we received for the ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds. And then in 2022, the board established an 070 Capital Projects Fund. And what they did is we transferred $2 million from our general fund into that 070 Capital Projects Fund, and that money was obtained from the reimbursement of the ARP funds. Now, it wasn't the full $2.4 million. ARP, it's all tracked by the federal government, tracked by ODE, and what we need to do is we needed to earmark 20% of the $2.4 million, and that 20% had to be spent on remediation, summer learning, or extending the school year. So we took the 80% and we put a new roof on the middle school. We put a new HVAC system on the middle school. We put a new hot water tank here at the high school. It's not included in here, but we also bought all these smart boards and fixed the projectors district-wide. And then with that 20%, we hired 4 reading specialists. 3 of them were at the elementary school, and 1 of them was at the middle school. So how are we using our money now? This is a 4-year capital expenditures. We've used $3.4 million in technology, flooring. I forget what all the other stuff was, but it's just carpentry, flooring, $1.3 1.6 million on our chillers and boilers, 540,000 on our roofing, 310,000 on vehicles and buses, and just this year another 432,000 for 2 school buses and 1 van. $264,000 on drainage, $200,000 on paving and sidewalks, $92,000 in landscaping, and $48,000 in the bus garage. So if you add up all of those in the last 4 years, that's $6.5 million, or $1.6 million a year. So again, our general fund is pulling $1.6 million out of it to cover our current capital expenditures, which again isn't keeping up. So these are our tennis courts. We went out there this spring, took some pictures. What we have is the base is completely failing at these tennis courts. We need to dig up the base, relay everything, and relay the tennis courts. What we do is we have an architect that we're working with. It's called Fanning Howey is the name of the firm. They work with schools across Ohio. They have multiple projects going on right now. And what we did is we asked them, we said, hey, across the state of Ohio, you've got a bunch of projects going on. Can you put together what you're seeing these costs to be, so you can give us some sort of estimate of what these are gonna cost? They put these costs together. They said that for the number of tennis courts that we have, to remove the base and to relay everything, it's gonna be right around $1.1 million. So this leads on to water main breaks. Here at the high school and also on the backside of the middle school, we have really aging water lines. And if you can see here, I know it's hard to tell with these pictures. Here he collared it and he's bracing it. Here's the crack on this one. We've done these multiple times, almost once or twice a year these water mains break. We have to dig them up, fix them. They've been patched and replaced numerous times. What we need to do is just dig these things up, cut them, and then relay the pipe. Estimate for this is somewhere between $120,000 and $200,000. Next is this roof. When you look at this, I know these pictures are hard to tell, but the little white specks that you see on these pictures, it's not gravel, it's not chalk. What it is it's the rubber membrane wearing thin, and so water's getting into these. The entire roof has just a bunch of little spots where this is starting to fail. There's 2 layers of rubber membrane, and then there's the concrete and steel roof, which has asbestos in it. We spoke to our architect to say, hey, what do we need to do for this type of roof? His suggestion was to remove it all. The remediation for the asbestos and the concrete is really what's driving this price up. But the estimate that he gave, that he is seeing across the state for this type of work, is anywhere between $5 and $7 million. And then our bus garage. Again, I think it's somewhere around 77 years old. None of it's paved. So again, every single time we plow, every single time the bus drivers have to do their DOT inspection, turn the wheel, they're digging holes into the gravel there. We're constantly redoing that to layer it back out and not have any trip hazards out there. We asked them what would be the cost to just tear this building down, put in a new modular unit. I think it had 2 bays, work bays, and then a lounge, and then the fencing, and then also the pavement. It was $1.5 million for the new facility. It was $900,000 just in paving work, and another $90,000 in fencing. So $2.5 million to tear this down and to put something up that's not quite the eyesore that this is right now. Just these 4 pictures alone: tennis courts, water main breaks, the roof here at the high school, and our bus garage. Those 4 pictures alone are $8.7 million to $10.8 million. Again, estimates from our architect. And sadly, that's not everything. What else needs repaired or updated or modernized? Our science room. Here at the high school, our science room is just not adequate enough for our students to continue learning the way that they need to. They'll plug in their microphone or their microscopes, and believe it or not, the power of that microscope trips the breakers for everything else. Renovations at both the high school and middle school restrooms. We need a new elevator. We have a service contract right now to keep that up and safe, but again, as these things are aging, they're having a difficult time finding parts to replace the elevator. So our best bet is to just put in a new elevator there at the middle school. It's almost 40 years old. Interior lighting and emergency egress. This room right now, this room hasn't changed since the place was probably built in 1968. it doesn't really provide students with that much opportunity other than to do what you're doing right now, is just sit here and listen. Our auditorium lighting and sound, at the play that we're gonna put on, we actually have our lighting, we can't find light bulbs for it anymore. It's just that old. And so as these things start to age out, we have to replace them. And believe it or not, the cost of auditorium lighting and sound is astronomical. Desks, chairs, casework, loose furnishings, and that's gonna be throughout the district. And then also the replacement of pavement throughout the district. So those are the needs of what we are looking for and why we are looking to have a bond. And so again, what can a bond be used for and for how long? So a bond levy is a ballot measure to fund the building or renovation of existing buildings. Revenue generated from a bond cannot be used for operating expenses such as salaries. We can't use it for health insurance. We can't use it to pay bonuses. We can't use it for anything other than to fund the building or renovation of existing buildings. The total cost to repair and modernize the district will be $47 million. And so a 3.91 mil bond levy for 30 years will be placed on the May 6th, 2025 ballot. And again, the main thing, what will this cost the homeowner? The average home in Vermilion, according to Zillow, was $242,000. So the average person would cost $28 a month or $342 a year. So I threw a bunch of information at you. I just wanted to explain again why the district is asking for a bond levy, and if any of you have any questions. Yes?
If you continue, if it doesn't pass and you continue to fund these things from the general fund, how long before the money's all gone?
It's a good question. Our 5-year forecast right now, I put money in there just for the roof. It doesn't include any money for the tennis courts or anything like that. And our 5-year forecast has an ending cash balance of $1.7 million. So in 2029, 2030, the district will be looking for an operating levy to cover that cost. Yes?
When I was on the school board, we wanted to have at least 10% carryover at the end of each fiscal year because we have salaries and other costs that go through the summer when school's not open that we have to pay. And that 10% is barely covering that. $1.7 million is insufficient.
Agreed.
At that point.
Agreed. We have a cash balance policy that says anything below 25%, the treasurer must notify the Board of Education, and at which point the Board of Education must do one of two things. Request additional funding, reduce expenditures, or a combination of both. And so this is a preemptive ask, really, because again, these are astronomical costs. This roof alone, if we got a bill in January, if we got a bill for $7 million this last January, we wouldn't have the cash flow to cover that. I'd have to borrow.
Let me put it in context.
Sure.
You know, our house is now 42 years old. We replaced the roof. We've done new gutters. We've done new windows. We've done several water heaters. For Christmas, Linda said I got a new garbage disposal installed. Those things happen, and this is happening with our schools. And these are decent buildings. You know, other school districts are tearing down buildings after 60 years and starting all over again with a cost that's way beyond this $47 million component of things. And it just makes sense to, you know, appreciate what we've got and think about how to take care of it and take it into the future. Technology has changed so dramatically, and to see that students with their 1,300 laptops and 250 iPads can't charge them for their classwork and stuff like that. The technology needs to be upgraded, and got to take our kids into the 21st century. So, you know, put it in what it is at our houses, and we need to take care of this house. This is Vermilion's community, Vermilion schools, and we've been very lucky to be proud of some excellent buildings and excellent staff.
I think that's a good point. I mean, that's what really strikes me the most is that we just have to, number one, take care of the things that have to be taken care of to just kind of keep this place operational, but yet start to move things forward. Get to the point that we can actually have spaces. My kids talk about, their laptop is dead by the last period, and oh, thank goodness I didn't have to do a lot with my laptop that period because I didn't have any charge left. I said, well, do you have places to plug in? Not in every classroom do they have a place to plug in. That's an issue. That's kind of a basic thing now. If you're in high school, if you're in college, you are on a laptop doing your work, and that's just how the classes are taught. And we need to make sure the facilities match the way we are teaching.
I got a question.
Yes.
When and if you looked at doing new construction, do you have a price per square foot that you looked at? And
We
what
do.
was that?
The architect gave that price out, what was it, just over $80 million a building.
What's
I
the
don't know
square
what the-
footage? What's
I-
square footage for that?
The square footage would be the same footprint here, so call it 100,000 square foot.
So
$80
that's
million
$800 a square foot.
Right.
$800 a square foot.
That's what the architects are saying, yeah. Again, these aren't like out to bid prices. These are just asking the architects, hey guys, when you guys are building a new school building, and again, depending on size, depending on square foot, depending on footprint, what are you seeing? And I can give you the actual square footage for those estimates, but the
No, I'm just
renovation
curious.
cost
I
was
didn't
right
know
around
what you
$80 million
used. That's
for the
all.
high school. Yeah. And that's a good point too. Even the $80 million, that would exceed our debt limit. We couldn't even do that. So what they do is they take your assessed value and multiply that times 9%. That's your spending limit. And so before our last appraisal, that limit was $49 million. We couldn't charge any more than that. You can ask for a waiver from ODE up to 3%, I believe, to make it 12%, but that wouldn't put us anywhere near a new building.
I was at the council meeting on Monday, and they agreed to do a couple of roads, redo a couple of roads, one over here in Pineview. I think Bromhelm Station, somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that, I think Jeff's over there. And they used a number to replace Pineview at 1.4 million. And I think that if you do the square footage or the linear footage of Pineview, probably significantly exceeds the square footage of the tennis courts. So I'm wondering how much of a disparity there is between one and the other. It seems like a lot. Meaning 1.1 a lot for the tennis courts.
Sounds like it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how it would work out. I don't think there's many places that do tennis courts that do roads and vice versa, but again, these aren't my made-up numbers. These
No, I
are
know that.
from architects.
But I'm just trying to put it in perspective.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So I've heard a lot about that we're kind of following the model that Port Clinton kind of established with their remodel here over the last couple of years. Could you kind of explain like what they've done and how we're kind of following their footsteps as far as
Sure.
this whole levy's concerned?
So with Port Clinton, believe it or not, their schools were roughly the exact same age that ours are. Their community, if you were to compare age, income, everything else, were very similar to Port Clinton. And so what they had done is the exact same thing. They had said, our buildings are aging, and what can we do? We don't want to build a new one. We don't want to tear this entire high school down to put our kids where? In a bunch of trailers to learn for a year or two until that school gets built. So what they said is we want to renovate ours. And so they went through and they did all the lighting. As you walk down our hallways, you can just see how dark everything is. They did the lighting. They did a lot of things. They built a new media center. They've upgraded their restrooms. They're doing a lot of the same things that we are trying to do as well. And when you walk into those schools, they look drastically different and they look modern compared to walking into this school that was built in 1968.
They redid their auditorium too.
They did.
Even just little things like the signage in the hallways and removing a lot of the lockers that we clearly aren't using. And they had like desks with chargers, so kids can be in the hallway and get, you know, more of a access and study groups. And it was, I was lucky enough to be able to walk through Port Clinton, and it was truly amazing. And I felt like a college campus almost. And I just feel like when you keep the buildings nice and give these kids what they want, there's also gonna be more pride in the kids coming here and more pride as a community. Because this is something that can draw people to this community as our district.
Absolutely.
And we have to keep up. I mean, it's a selling point for this community. And we have to keep up with the technology and modernization of our schools. It's a big difference.
Yes, sir.
I have a question regarding the roof, and I'm a 1982 graduate of Vermilion High School, so I know this place well. I sat in here,
Does it look similar?
and my locker's still over there. It's very similar. I think it's exact to be correct.
I think your t-shirt's there too.
I do have it. It says Molly's Vineyard on it. My question is, how old is the rubber membrane on the roof currently?
The one that was replaced, you got that?
Is in the mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
And what is the life expectancy, not the warranty on it, but what is the life expectancy on that rubber
Well,
membrane?
25, 30 years, obviously. It's failing now. You know, it was the latest technology when we put it on, but now this is a second layer. You can't put another layer on top of the 2 layers that are there.
My concern is, you know, from an infrastructure standpoint, what happens next when it does fail miserably? We're gonna have more work, more damage, more repair.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, there's already holes in the office area. They're ceiling tiles that are soggy, falling.
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, we will talk with our roofing contractors and see how long we can stretch that out. I mean, we don't want to be in that position, and if we need to replace a section of it that's just completely bad versus one that hasn't started leaking yet, we don't want to be in that position to have to only replace half, because it's going to cause more problems, but we might have to do that.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Do you have a more detailed, comprehensive plan about like, what's number 1 priority, what's 2, what's 3, what's 4, and a time frame?
That we don't have just yet. I don't know, do you think we would have, I mean, priority number 1 is safety and security. So something with the roof, that would be our number 1 concern. We can go through this, but I mean,
We have a list that we generated as the architect was working and looking at the facilities and coming up with their estimates. We were putting together, because we were starting to see these issues, and we didn't have, there really wasn't a prioritization of what needs to happen and what order. So we created a spreadsheet of things that absolutely have to be done, that within the next 2-3 years. So this roof would be one of them. There's several things at the bus garage that are failing that have to be dealt with. The tennis courts, if we're gonna have a tennis team, you know, those types of things that are really failing now that we will have to address. So we do have that list of priorities. That alone is about $14 million. That things that just have to be done. The other stuff is modernization, like the lighting, the paints, you know, the things that would make the new flooring in different areas, the things that would make it a more modern school. That's the rest of this. That's what that comes from. But there's about 14 million of things that are high priority, have to be done.
Yeah, a nice, like, phased approach to addressing the list. It's a very long list.
And I think that's what really should be emphasized is, you know, that list and really prioritizing safety and security. And like it was said, if we don't start addressing things like the roof and stuff, it's gonna cost us more in a couple more years. And there's a big economy of scale to doing an entire roof versus let's just do a third of it.
right. Great question. Anything else? Yes.
If you did get the levy passed in May, for example, when would you be able to pull the trigger on a roof?
So if we pass the levy in May, we would have to go out to either New York or Chicago, do a Moody's rating, get all that stuff, sell the bonds. As soon as we sold the bonds, that money would start coming in. And then as soon as we received the money, we would put everything out to bid. So I would anticipate it happening pretty quickly.
When you
I
say
think our-
quickly, like 3 months, 6 months?
3 to 6 months, we would start with everything, yeah. And again, we wouldn't be able to Some of the things, if they could wait, we would do it over the summer. We would have these contractors that are working second or third shift, especially for some of the things that are safety concern, to do right away.
When would we see, just being conjecture, when would we, inside the building, when would we see the kids that have the ability to plug in laptops and have, would we see a remodel within this building, for example?
I think we would have to wait and see when those architects or when those bids came in to see if we have qualified contractors to do the work. And then again, once we have everything set up, we would put out a plan to say, here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, how we need to do it. I'm not an architect or a builder, so I wouldn't want to opine on when I think we would have electric done or painting done. I'd hate to put the cart in front of the horse there, but again, our main concerns would be the things that we said absolutely need to get done, and where that falls in the building project. Building project itself, I don't think would take too terribly long. I think we would be aiming to get that done in 12 to 16 months.
Okay, that's, okay, within 2 years, let's say.
Yeah,
It's
we've done
possible.
this, Wes and I are from another school district. We've built a new building and we've renovated other old buildings. And it actually, once you get the contractors, you get the right bids and you approve them, it's amazing how fast it happens. If you have, we'd have the architects managing the project, and I think it could happen, a lot of those things could happen pretty fast. Because we would be working, second and third shift, and so school would go on in our classrooms, but we would also be, doing the work at the same time, and we wouldn't have to displace students and all that. So to be honest with you, I'm pretty amazed at how fast, especially the renovation part of it, went in a high school that was bigger than this and a middle school.
If I may add just one more thing, not to piggyback on what other people have said about Port Clinton. I was actually there a couple weeks ago too for a basketball tournament, and not knowing that we had a levy coming up, not knowing that they had done their levy, I walked in the building and was like, what, knowing that they're a similar sized town, I was like, what happened here to get this?
It's
What
funny,
happened?
that's exactly what happened to
Because
me.
it is, and I would encourage everybody just to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
If this is the model that we're going
Yeah.
after, to see that,
The
I
reason
just
it's
was
the model
stunned.
is I went over there to a wrestling tournament a couple of years ago, and then I had the same reaction that you did, thinking, this is what we need to do at Vermilion. So then I knew their superintendent, I immediately got a hold of him. We took a group of people over, he showed us all the buildings, showed us what they did, talked about their plan and how they, they were about funding it and all that. Our 5-year forecast, if you put two of them side by side, theirs and ours, you couldn't tell which one was which. Financially, we're almost identical to them. And so that was how I reacted, is we need to do this here, because they kept their buildings and they just modernized them and made them beautiful. And
Their
it
science
is impressive.
lab is amazing. And their media center, I mean, it's crazy.
And as much as I would care about our students being the teachers, I just
Yep.
want them to walk into the building and be like, I'm glad to come to work every day
Yeah,
here.
And
it
attract the
does.
top
Just-
talent.
Yeah, Anyway, that's all I have to
And
say.
you're gonna draw for teachers who want to teach here, you're gonna get better teachers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
What is our, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll probably tack on to that. I've been like all around, like I've gone to basketball games, football games, other sporting events, like all around, like other schools around the area. And I take a look at these, and as well as a bunch of the other players as well. And they use this term of like rich to describe them compared to us. And they have like this thing of like, why can't we be rich in terms of like, why can't our school be modern like all these other ones?
Yeah. Agreed. Yes, sir.
You said, once you do this, you're gonna go out for a bid. Do you anticipate, a significant variance between what you've got up there financially versus what the actual bid might come in at?
We don't, because the architects that did this are doing projects right now in Ohio. Like they just did Copley Fairlawn School District. So they know that this is what it's costing to do these very same things in other school districts. So I think
have those budgets been negotiated? With whom, and who did the negotiation?
what do you mean negotiated?
Where'd you get those numbers?
The architect.
rough order
1.1
of magnitude.
million for the tennis court. How'd you come up with that?
The architect.
The architect.
Yes, the architect gave us all of the cost estimates because they're the ones doing this work and they know what it's costing them
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Just note now, with the impact of tariffs and stuff, they're already seeing a lot of the
Yes,
construction
it'll go up.
is really starting to go up, so the
Yeah.
longer we wait,
the more that continues to
Yeah.
go up.
Have we used more than one architect? Have we put it out for bid for more than one architect, or are we just using one architect?
We met with, I think 2 years ago, we met with like 13 architects. We invited them to come in here, and we told them what we were looking at doing. And you really can't do a bidding process with them, with the architects. And you know, they don't have to tell you, for example, when we met with them, they said, you know, we were wanting to pick the one that we thought would be more cost effective. Well, they don't have, by law, they do not have to share with you what their cost will be.
Well, did you get proposals though from these architects and then shop around, or did you guys get, you know, multiple architects to do up drawings on what a cost would be?
I don't
Just
believe,
one company.
my experience is there wouldn't be any difference between one architect saying what it costs and another architect. They're just basing it on the market, what's happening in the
Okay.
market. What I'm saying is they don't have to tell you what they're gonna charge you as a fee to work with you.
Oh, I understand that
Yeah.
you would have a fee to get the proposal, but, is this the same architect that's in working?
It is, that's one of the reasons why we were
And the
interested.
other school districts
Yes.
as well?
And they do nothing but schools, which is
Okay.
another important factor.
Okay. Thank you.
So what is our plan B if this doesn't pass?
November.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah.
It will what?
It would be to go.
Yeah, I just feel like this
I didn't
is a
hear-
short
you didn't
time
hear-
November.
to put this on the ballot
Pass
so
in
quickly.
November, we're gonna have to keep trying to pass.
You keep going, yeah.
Yeah, there's not another option.
Yeah, again, the biggest concern, and again, it's the way schools are funded, but the vast majority of our cash comes in July and August, and it comes in again in February and March. And so our lowest point of cash is right now, is in February and early March. And so if we had to take $7 million out of our general fund right now, we would have to borrow a little bit to make payroll.
And if the ask in May doesn't pass, you anticipate the same ask in November, you're not going to adjust it.
That decision hasn't been made, but, you know, we have adjusted this down from $80 million. So when we ask the architect to do everything that he thinks needs done in these buildings, okay, not just to modernize them for students, but to make them more efficient and functional. The total cost was $80 million. And as Justin said earlier, we can't even borrow $80 million. So that wasn't an option. So basically what we have now with the $47 million is, for example, we have to replace all the rooftop air conditioning units on this building, okay? There's what, 5 of them?
Yeah, it's quite a
I
bit.
think there's 5 of them. And they felt like we really need to replace all the electricity in the building because of the age of the building. Well, that won't happen now because of the cost of that. So those types of things were taken out to bring the cost down to $47 million so we could actually afford to borrow the money. And beyond that, the state of Ohio has what's called the Ohio School Facilities Commission. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Okay, so when school districts get new buildings built and the state helps them pay for it, that's the Ohio School Facilities Commission. We built an elementary in Lincoln Valley with that. And when you build a new building, if you have old existing buildings, they make you renovate them up to the same standard. So that's what we did at Lincoln Valley, built a new elementary and renovated the high school and the middle school. That's based, you get money from the High School Facilities Commission based on your property valuation. There's a formula, okay? Lincoln Valley, we got 78%. Lincoln Valley sits in the middle of the state, it's rural, all agricultural, no businesses. So we were considered poor. So we got 78% of the funding from the state to pay for it. We will never get money from the state because we have that beautiful lake up there and people built some mansions on it. And we look rich, we look wealthy. 40% of our kids are on free or reduced price lunches, okay? So we will never get the money from the state to do a building project. But what the architect said was he uses, because that's what the across the state that's being used in their building projects with that across the state. So they know what the costs are. That's where these costs are coming from. It's coming from the formula they use when the state funds a building, okay? And he told us that if we were going to get state funding, we would have to tear this building down and the middle school down because it's going to cost over 2/3 of the cost of a new one just to renovate it. And if you get to 60% of the cost of renovation to a new building, they make you tear the building down and start over.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. So technically, this building would be torn down if we got state money. Now, I agree with Wade, I don't, Reed, I don't think we need to tear the building down. I think we have, a solid building here, but we do need to renovate it and upgrade things and make it a modern school for our students and our staff. One of the issues at the middle school, I'm sure most of you know this, there's no doors on the classrooms on the second floor of the middle school. It was built with this sort of open concept. This was like a 70s thing, which no one ever actually appreciated or used.
No.
And
It's horrible.
so what's happened is the teachers have kind of taken bookcases and things to kind of create their own doorway. But the sound up there, when all these classes are going on at the same time, I get emails from parents about their kid not being able to concentrate on the second floor of the middle school. I mean, that's another thing that needs to be done, right? And the safety and security aspect of that. You can't do a lockdown on the second floor. Fortunately, we have those exits and they can get out of the building. But you couldn't lock down in a classroom on a second floor.
Is that on your kind of, I was wondering if you were gonna bring that up, because that's always been one of my concerns about that school too, and especially coming from you, who's been really on top of the safety and security. Is that in a phase, is that renovation something that's also within that
Yes.
two-year plan?
Yes. I kind of said, we're not gonna renovate that building without putting doors on the second floor. I mean, to me, it's one of the primary things that has to be done.
I'll move through that.
Good.
Is this using the valuation that is currently, that has just become put in place by the counties? This is the brand new valuation of homes?
So when our debt ceiling was used off of the old. The timing between when the state certifies everything, even though we did it in January, they wouldn't certify our new rates yet. So our debt limit is based on the valuation of $555 million. Our new valuation is $698 million. But no, it's off the 555.
I think something that needs to be expressed to the community is, my husband and I, before we had our daughter, were looking anywhere to live other than here. And our number one thing as we were planning the family was, what do the schools look like? What are the ratings and how are the schools? And that was actually one reason why we were on our way out. And then we had her and she started school, and that all kind of happened really fast. And the teachers are so good here that that's the reason we stayed. But I think people need to realize their home values also depend on the schools. And I think that gets lost.
It's not just the home values, it's business. If you're gonna attract manufacturing, why would a company, let's just say, in Monroe, Ohio, why would they wanna move and build a new facility in Vermilion if in fact the schools weren't as good as they were in Monroe? You've got that challenge. But I think you also have a challenge of reality. And the reality and the timing, I think, is gonna be a challenge.
We agree 100%. We think it's the absolute worst time to ask for money. It's always the worst time.
Yeah, it's never-
This is the absolute worst time.
Yeah.
We understand that. It's just that we're in this situation where, our cash balance is gonna be drained away over the next few years taking care of these projects. And there was just no way to push it down the road. But I agree with you.
So one of the biggest complaints in the community that I'm hearing from a lot of parents is, you guys did the Vermilion Elementary School, but we didn't get any money from the people when we did that, correct?
Right.
Didn't we scale it back in order to fund it the way you guys funded it without asking the
Well,
community?
what I would say is if you look at our elementary, okay, and I wasn't here when that was done, it's built way too small.
Yeah.
We had to move the 4th and 5th grade to the middle school, and move the 8th grade up here, which very few people I've talked to like that arrangement. I don't like that arrangement. So that was done because they did ask the community for a bond. They said no. and then they decided to go ahead and do it anyway. And I wasn't here, so I don't know the reasons and rationale for that. But, you know, I always assume that people do things, you know, for the right reasons and for the best, you know, at the time for the best reasons. So I have to assume that they did it because these other buildings that they were using were failing so bad that they just felt like it had to be done.
But again, if the community would understand, like, lesson learned, if you decline a bond and you decline funding, you're going to get what you have available to you, and if that's not, if they're now complaining about it, it's not satisfactory, well, you kind of did it to yourself, right?
That's why
I
there should
mean,
be a whole lot
I
more
do
people.
morning drop-off at that school,
Yeah,
and
not 18.
I know the old plan had a very big drop-off.
Yeah, that's really a hazard, the way that
Right.
is set up.
Right.
But that's okay.
But yeah, I mean, and that is a concern I know that people have, and, you know, that was done, and it kind of with the opposition of the community, because they didn't vote for the bond. But, you know, to me, you know, it's past history, you can't fix that. We just have to look at where we are now and what's our vision for the future and how do we get there, and we just can't go back and fix that situation. You know?
But looking at that, we have to understand, if you're only gonna be able to do the roof of all those things, that's financially all we're going to be able to afford, right? If we don't pass the,
The roof is gonna be a big one, because it's gonna have to be done.
Right.
And then we got that other list of things. The bus garage, we'll just kind of keep patching it and doing what we do there. You know, and the same thing, you know, we won't, the aesthetics things will not change. We will do the absolute essentials. And even that, you know, if we do all the 14 million in the next 2 or 3 years, it drains off our cash reserve.
So how do we more effectively get the word out to the community that,
You don't
like, if
a
you have a
lot of time.
$150,000 house, it's gonna cost you $17. That's small.
Right.
But I think people see bond and, oh God, the property taxes just went up. I'm paying $6 million a month for water. I think it's bad, but how do we effectively get out? Like, you know, my house is between $250 and $300. That's a very small amount.
It's $1 a day.
Correct, it's small, but how do we get that out to
All right.
people that
So-
these dollar amounts really are small?
That's a good segue. The Board of Education is great to put this on the ballot. The administration has been wonderful to put on this meeting tonight to talk about the facts. They cannot say vote for the levy. And vote for the levy is being done by the Vermilion School Levy Committee, of which I am the treasurer. And so we are raising monies to get information and pull information out, and we'll communicate with levy signs and literature and things like that that will go out to support the campaign. So as the treasurer, I'm the guy that needs to raise money to do that, and it's an expensive process. But they can't talk about it. They can't tell you vote yes or no about anything by state law. Thank goodness school board members as individuals, not in a school board meeting, but as individuals can participate in this process. So it's time for us as the community to say, gee, makes sense. They've done their homework, they've provided the information, they've set the target, and it's up to us as the community members to come together and work on this process. And so we need help financially, we need help with feet on the ground and things like that. So what's planned are levy signs, promotional literature that goes out to all the voters. Hopefully there's going to be a door-to-door thing with information that will go out to community members. Hopefully we can use our students who have to do some community service and learn about how communities work in that process and providing that information. So that's, I want to
Well,
say
you have,
thank you.
we have a campaign committee, we have a
Yeah.
campaign chair, and hopefully you've seen the website. She has a Facebook page.
Support.
I sent it to Sarah. Tell
Sarah's, I'm not on social media. I'm on a few.
Neither am I.
I sent it
I've
to
learned
Sarah,
this.
'cause
But my
I sent
wife
it to
is,
everybody.
so-
I've
So,
learned things.
Dana
I've
Decker is
I've
the
even learned
campaign
about
chair.
PayPal.
Dana Decker's the campaign chair.
Yes.
She is also working with the group that the committee has hired called SOS, which is Support Ohio Schools. It's a group that this is what they do, is they advise people on how to run levies. And they're taking all of their advice about how to connect with voters, communicate with voters, use social media. And so they do have a group that is advising them about how to approach this. And I think that there's a small group but they're working really hard.
Yeah, we've been working since, early January on that process, so. So some of you may wish to donate, see me. And, you may wanna participate. I think we set the next meeting for, April 1st. It'll be in the cafeteria at the high school,
6:30.
6:30. Yes,
You were all, when you were talking about the comparisons of the rich schools, like Stephen mentioned or whatever, was the comparison specifically about Port Clinton that you were talking about, or was there another school?
Yeah, no, we
That
looked
was
at Port Clinton, just
like-
because of the similarities in the two districts.
I feel like that needs to be a very big focal point. I feel like we need to ask permission of Port Clinton schools. Could we produce a video that shows?
Dana's trying to make contact.
So I contacted the superintendent today, Dana contacted me, she wants pictures from their school that she can post online, and he's gonna send them to me, the superintendent is, I'm gonna share them with Dana.
Yeah.
See what could be.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like people would understand a lot more about what you're trying to achieve. I mean, everyone can understand a new roof is something happens, but what is?
You don't see the beauty of it.
That's like when we had, at my house, we had to spend $15,000 to raise the garage floor like 2 inches because it was settling. Like, you can't see that money.
Yeah.
The
That's
community
money you
cannot
have to
see
spend.
the roof.
Right.
But they could visually see in a video comparison, like, this is our goal, and with this extra money, this is what we want to achieve for our students, and this is how it's gonna benefit them, versus the things that can't
Yeah,
visually be seen.
Dana is working on that very thing. Yeah.
So, you know, it just makes me think about the HVAC systems here. Part of the schoolrooms are cold.
Yes.
The other ones are hot, trying to make up for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's my
So, he's with SNN, and he's helped go around the school already and kind of take pictures and, you know, kind of put something out to, it's gonna be presented eventually for things that we wanna improve on this levy. To piggyback off of that, can we get permission from Port Clinton to take some of these kids from here, take them over there, have them walk it, have them do it like a presentation and a video, like a TikTok or a YouTube, so that we can show it to the community with our kids. You know,
Make it
there's a
more
lot of
personal.
people in here, we've got middle school, elementary, high school kids, from the bottom to the top, let's use those kids, let's use our own kids to promote our future.
Yeah, they've been incredibly gracious.
Yeah.
We've been over there 3 times, and the superintendent himself walks the entire building and campus with us. I mean, we met with some of their school board members, their director of operations was with us the entire time to talk about some of the technical stuff. They've been wonderful, and they would not say no to doing that, yeah.
That would be something I think he definitely would be involved in, I know there's other kids that would.
I love the idea of kids doing
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I get your contact
Absolutely.
information and make sure that Dana Decker gets that?
Dana Decker already has, she already has my contact information.
Okay, then I don't need to do.
Her and
anything.
Steven have already met, so,
Good.
yes.
Be glad to have his participation.
Thinking back.
Right?
Yeah, right?
It's a short time frame, we're gonna have to work fast.
That's community service time, by the way.
Steven needs to narrate it though, because he's got a voice that
Oh,
definitely needs to be heard.
You're our
Amazing.
sportsman announcer.
Yeah.
right?
Seriously,
Yeah.
he's
Did
amazing.
Few boys basketball games, did almost every single girls game.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, JV football, gonna be doing baseball again this year.
Awesome.
Good.
He's good.
How many of our homeowners in this thing, what's the percentage of like Airbnb, like not full-time residents? Because I know I think Karen's like 30%. I mean, it could be way off, but they have a large percentage of homes that are not full-time residents. So like,
But they
what are
do
we up
pay
against
taxes.
with that?
They do pay taxes, but they may not vote here.
That's what I'm saying, like, do we have to convince voters that aren't even living in our community well, they own a house, so.
Yeah,
But
it
if
doesn't
it's not their,
necessarily,
if it's not their residence, they
right, it
don't, okay.
doesn't necessarily mean they vote here.
So the SOS group that we're
A
working
lot of
with,
those people vote in Florida.
one of the powerful things about the SOS group is they have all the voting data, and they have an algorithm that can predict how people will vote on a school levy based on a lot of data that's inputted over the years from elections. And so that they've shared that information with our committee. So it helps you kind of target the voters that, you know, are going to be most likely to go to the polls and vote. And, you know, there's some in that group that are just, they know, are automatically no voters. And then you got the ones in the middle that maybe are on the fence, and then you got your yes voters. And, you know, they talk about the goal being, you gotta get the yes voters out for sure. You gotta get the maybe voters convinced that they need to vote for you. And then, you know, the no voters, you kind of don't spend a lot of time with them because you know that they're gonna vote no. I mean, that's kind of that's the way they've talked to us about it.
Yeah, so their database says that there are 47 households with one or more voters in Vermilion Local School District.
40%?
4,700 households.
Hundred.
Households that have one or more voters.
So what has the report come back as who our biggest naysayers are? I'm just assuming because we have such an older population in Vermilion, that those on fixed incomes would be very hard to be swayed.
You would think that, but the older population tends to support education.
And you know, so EHOVY ran a levy recently for the exact same reasons. And they're gonna modernize their campus. $210 million, you know, they have a county-wide tax base. The superintendent told me they have very strong support in Vermilion. So, that's good. Now, that was before they got their tax bills. Everybody got their tax
Yeah.
bills.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so.
What was the detriment the last time with elementary? Like, I mean, I was here, but I don't remember what were people disgruntled about? Why did they vote that one down?
That was after my time on the Board of Education. It was,
Before my time.
and, you know, I don't know exactly.
Was that
what
11,
is.
10 or 11?
I worked on bond issues and things like that, and I think it was 2011.
And was that just run one time?
It
No,
was run one
2000
time, but basically, the elementary school was able to be
12,
built
13,
by
somewhere in
cost
there.
reduction. By consolidating into one campus, you know, was able to get cash flow that was sufficient to pay for that building. So.
I thought that was a
many
miracle.
School districts that are
Yeah.
conserving their funds, we haven't had an increase since 2008, 17 years. We built an elementary school without going to voters on
Field
it. So
house.
the schools have been managing things well. Yeah, is it as good as we should have had? Maybe not, but, you know, it's there and we're gonna live with it and make them all better, I think. So, if you wish to donate to the school levy committee, I've got some envelopes with my name and address on it, or if you wanna do it by PayPal, I've got a QR code.
Dr. Ira, real quick, you know, this might pertain to your previous school district when you guys did your projects. So having the money is one thing and contracting it out is another thing. Is there anything in this entire plan that will allow businesses or individuals within Vermilion to make donations in kind, whether it's material, labor, anything like that, to kind of offset or bring down the costs of all these projects?
Yes.
Because I know Edison has done a fantastic job with their sports facilities. You know, friends with the architect that built the field house that they have, and it was a lot of just guys coming in on weekends, you know, lending their expertise and time and material, and, you know, really keeping costs down. So is there any of that?
Yes.
As part of our, you know,
Once
plan
the,
going
once the
forward?
contractors are, you know, we take it in the lowest bidders. Anybody that wants to do in-kind donations, that just comes off of the cost.
Okay.
You know, now the contractor has to do the work, you know. For example, at Licking Valley, we didn't have many businesses, but we had a plumbing company there called Houston Plumbing. And they had been involved with the school district since the early 60s. I mean, like coaching sports teams, they helped rebuild the track. They just donated a lot of money. Well, when we did the elementary, their in-kind donation was doing all the HVAC work at cost.
There you go.
So that just came off the top. You know, that's an enormous gift.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's a small business, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge thing for them to do. But that's how that works. Once we have the bids, it just comes right off the cost of what we would pay the
So,
contractor.
like I say, is there a plan to solicit type of activity or type of donations from the city if?
Sure.
Once this funding goes forward?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, no. Maybe 47 million gets brought down, or maybe we can do some extra things, you know?
Yeah, anything that comes
Donation.
off of that,
Yeah.
you know, plus it's great to have the community people involved
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
I mean, it's their project, it's their buildings.
Yeah.
You know?
I can vouch for the tennis courts. Talking with Mr. Stillman, that's something we're gonna, you know, if all this goes through, that we're definitely gonna try to look to do.
We have to if we're gonna have tennis.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise,
There's a tremendous network of former tennis players that
Yeah.
I feel like we could reach out to that could really
Yes.
Donate to the facility and really make it, you know.
and honestly, if we had the
first class,
money,
yeah.
I would renovate the stadium. The stadium needs renovated. I mean, that parking lot over there,
Yeah.
it's never been paved
Seriously.
ever.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
put some gravel down this winter because it just was looking so horrible. But, I mean, to replace that parking lot, $3 million.
That's,
To put in, to dig it down and put in a base and asphalt it, put up lights, all that is almost $3 million. So, I mean, I would love to do all of that if we could. It's just beyond what we can afford. Yes, sir.
To tack on to that, if you want to to see other improvements onto our athletic facilities here, I would also definitely consider you making donations to help us get that planned turf for our football field that would improve the safety of our athletes on the field, and also would provide another space for not just a football space for our football team, but also our soccer team would also play there as well. And I do know this is both a big football town and also has been for many, many years a prevalent soccer town too. And I've heard some complaints from football players about random bumps or dents, divots in the field. But then over at that soccer field, that place floods a lot on the regular. So to give some of our fall teams a nicer and also a safer surface to play on, that would definitely be something to consider.
There's a committee that's been working on doing that, and they've been working on it for about 4 years now. And they started right before COVID. They had some really nice donations. They actually had a donation that was about half the cost of putting the field in, and then COVID hit, and that company had to retract the money. They had other sponsors that were going to put in money. They took the money back because of the COVID situation. So then they had to start all over again. They've applied for the NFL does a grant through the local teams like the Browns. You apply for a grant and they'll match it up to $250,000. So they were trying to get the $250,000 for the match, which they never quite got there, but they applied for the grant 3 times and got turned down each time. And I think they simply didn't have the matching funds, and they weren't going to give them the money if they didn't know that they could actually do the project. Because the project, just doing the field alone is about $1 million. And we did this at Licking Valley. We were fortunate we had one guy step up and say, I'm putting the field in. And he was an excavator, so he did all the work with the excavation, then hired a company to come in and actually put the field in. But it was $1 million. And I think it's probably still around that range, maybe more now because of inflation. But thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
And you can reach out to us and ask us questions anytime you want about this or anything else.
Is there another forum that we could do to get more people in? Because really this is disappointing.
It is, yeah. Every time I host a meeting, I'm disappointed in because people, they just don't come to meetings anymore. And people are super busy. If you got 2 kids, you're going 2 different directions, and it's really tough. I mean, we can host another one of these. I don't know the secret to getting people here. I know that the campaign committee, Dana had it on the Facebook page, which she says has got about 2,500 followers now, I think. And so she's gotten the word, trying to get the word out that way. I don't know. We sent a message to parents, that we're having this. So I don't know. That goes to like 3,000 people. Yeah. I don't know how else to.
I just happened to see it in the school announcements. It's the only way I knew about it.
Serve refreshments.
Well, you know, that used to work, it doesn't work anymore. No, it doesn't work anymore. That used to be the trick, is you feed them. It doesn't work anymore.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll use another spaghetti dinner adjournment.
That's it.